The night was quiet, the desert sky full of stars when a strange sound broke the silence. It was not thunder. It was not an earthquake, but something heavier, something that made the ground shake like drums of war. People came out of their tents and houses pointing at the dark sky. A ball of fire was falling from above faster and faster, until it crashed into the barren land with a roar that could be heard for miles. The soldiers at the nearby outpost rushed to the scene, their trucks cutting across the sand, lights flashing. Scientists followed behind, holding their cameras and strange machines. The air smelled of smoke and burned metal. The crash site looked like a wound on the earth, a giant crater glowing with sparks. Everyone stood at the edge, waiting, whispering. Some said it was a meteor. Some said it was a secret enemy weapon, but no one could explain the strange hum that came from the crater, like a voice, like a heartbeat. And then they saw movement. From the broken wreckage, something huge began to rise. At first it looked like a shadow, taller than any human, taller than the trucks, even taller than the guard towers. The soldiers raised their rifles, their fingers ready on the trigger. The scientists stepped back, some recording, some too shocked to move. The smoke cleared and the figure stood. It was not a machine, not a monster, but a living being. It was a giantess. Her skin glowed faintly under the moonlight, pale yet strong, marked with scars that told of battles unknown to mankind. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing like distant suns. She looked around, weak, confused, but not angry. Her hair, long and silver, floated in the night breeze. She was wounded, tired, and above all, hungry. The crowd gasped. Some screamed. The soldiers shouted orders, forming a circle around her. "Don't move," one commander yelled, his voice trembling even as he pretended to be brave. But the giantess did not attack. She did not roar or crush. She simply sat down on the cracked earth, breathing heavily, her hand on her stomach. Her hunger was clear, yet nobody dared to move closer. The scientists argued in low voices. "She is dangerous," one said. "No, she is weak. This is our chance to study her," another replied. "She could destroy us all if we feed her. What if food makes her strong again?" The people who had gathered at a distance whispered like frightened birds. Rumors spread fast. "She eats humans. She can drink rivers dry. She will call her kind, and then we are finished." But none of this came from the giantess herself. She only sat there, her golden eyes half closed like someone on the edge of collapse. For hours, nobody dared to make a move. The soldiers waited for orders. The scientists waited for proof. The people waited for a sign. And the giantess waited too. Waited for something to eat, something to drink, something that would tell her this new world was not her enemy. But nothing came. The government sent more troops. Helicopters circled above, shining bright lights on her. Cameras captured every detail, and soon the whole world was watching. On screens everywhere, humans saw her, the alien giantess who had fallen from the stars. Leaders argued. Some said she must be destroyed before she became a threat. Others said she must be studied alive. Nobody spoke of helping her. Nobody spoke of kindness. The giantess slowly lowered her head, her breath shallow. She looked more like a prisoner than a conqueror, more like a lost child than a warrior. Yet fear is powerful, and fear had chained every human heart that saw her. At the edge of the crowd among the soldiers and scientists stood one man. He was silent, his eyes fixed on her. While others saw danger, he saw something different. He saw pain. He saw loneliness. He saw hunger. And deep inside he felt something strange. A pull, a voice in his mind that whispered, "If no one dares to step forward, she will die." The night grew colder. The stars kept watching. The giantess remained still, a stranger in a strange land, surrounded but untouched, feared but unfed. And so the story began. The story of the alien giantess nobody dared to feed. Morning came, but the air around the crash site was still heavy with fear. The giantess had not moved much since the night before. She sat quietly, her knees pulled close, her golden eyes half closed. She looked less like a monster and more like a wounded traveler, but nobody dared to say that out loud. The soldiers stood in a wide circle around her. Their rifles were always pointed, their fingers ready to shoot. Trucks with heavy guns were parked nearby. Helicopters stayed in the sky, circling like hungry vultures. The world outside the desert did not sleep. News cameras were everywhere, sending her image across the planet. Every home, every city, every family was now watching the strange visitor. In the military tent, the commanders argued. "She is too dangerous to be left alive," one said, slamming his fist on the table. "She is weak, barely able to sit up. Why waste bullets when nature will take her?" Another replied. "And if she recovers? If she stands again? She could crush this whole camp with her bare hands. Then we do nothing. We wait. Hunger will finish her faster than we ever could." That became the plan. They would not kill her directly. They would starve her, watching from a distance, waiting until her strength was gone forever. Outside, whispers spread through the gathered crowd. Local villagers had come, standing behind fences, peeking with wide eyes. Children asked questions their parents could not answer. Is she evil? Why doesn't she fight back? Why is nobody giving her food? The answers were all the same. Fear. Fear kept people frozen. Fear made them imagine the worst. Some said if she ate, she would grow even bigger. Others said feeding her was the same as feeding death itself. A rumor began that she was only pretending to be weak, that she was waiting for pity and then she would strike. But none of these voices noticed her trembling hands, her dry lips, her shallow breath. None of them saw the way her eyes searched the crowd, not with hatred but with longing. The scientists, too, argued among themselves. One young woman with glasses spoke softly. She needs water. She is not an enemy, she is a living being. But her senior silenced her quickly. Don't let your heart blind you. Compassion is weakness. If she survives, she may bring an army behind her. So silence ruled the camp. The silence of guns pointed but not fired. The silence of people watching but not helping. The silence of a giantess waiting for death. Hours turned into days. The sun beat down hot and merciless. At night, the cold winds bit at her skin. The giantess did not complain. She only sat waiting, her golden eyes growing dim. And yet in the middle of this silence, one figure kept watching. A single man among the soldiers. The same man who had felt the strange pull on the first night. While others looked at her with fear, he saw something else. He saw dignity. Even as she starved, the giantess did not beg. Even as she weakened, she did not strike in anger. She waited with patience, as if testing the hearts of the humans around her. The man felt shame rise in his chest. How could they, the so-called rulers of this planet, watch a living being suffer like this? His comrades laughed at her weakness. The commanders spoke of her as if she were an object, not a person. But he could not. His heart whispered that this was wrong. That night, as the camp settled into uneasy rest, the giantess shifted. She raised her head, her golden eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. She looked straight at him. Not at the others. Not at the guns. At him. For a moment, the world seemed to vanish. The noise of machines faded. The shouts of guards grew distant. There was only her gaze, calm but pleading. A silent message passed between them. A message no translator could explain. Help me. He turned away quickly, but the feeling stayed. It echoed in his chest, louder than the commander's orders, stronger than the crowd's fear. The silence of the camp was thick, but inside him a storm had begun. He lay awake, staring at the dark ceiling of his tent, hearing her silent call again and again. The choice was clear. If nobody else would act, perhaps he must. If nobody else dared, perhaps he must step forward. The next day came. The giantess was weaker, her body shaking, her skin pale. The people watching her whispered again, "She will not last long." Maybe it ends today, but one man among them clenched his fists. His heart pounded with decision. In the silence of fear, he heard another sound, the sound of courage rising. And so, while the world waited for her to die, one human was already preparing to do the unthinkable. The desert sun burned high above the camp. Dust rose in the hot wind, scratching throats, making eyes sting. The giantess still sat in the crater, weak and silent, her silver hair tangled with sand, her golden eyes dull with hunger. She had not spoken a single word, yet her presence filled the air like thunder before a storm. The soldiers had grown used to her silence. Some laughed at her weakness. Others spat near the fence, calling her a beast. She will die soon, they told each other. She is nothing without food. Their rifles still pointed at her, but less tightly now. The danger seemed smaller when she barely had the strength to raise her head. But one man could not laugh. He could not spit. He could not walk away. He was a soldier too, his uniform the same as theirs, but his heart was restless. Every time he saw her trembling hands, every time he saw her eyes searching the crowd, shame burned in him. He thought of the first night when she had looked at him. Not at the commander, not at the scientists, not at the guns, only at him. Her eyes had spoken without words, "Help me." That memory never left him. It followed him into his sleep. It woke him in the middle of the night. Now, as he stood at the edge of the circle watching her suffer, something inside him broke. He could not bear it any longer. His hand tightened around the small pack he carried. Inside it were rations, bread, dried meat, and a bottle of water. Nothing special, nothing large. But for her, it could mean life. The order was clear: do not approach. Do not feed her. Do not interfere. The punishment was clear too: prison, disgrace, maybe even death. But his heart no longer cared. Fear had ruled everyone else. Fear had starved her. Fear had kept her chained without chains. And now he would challenge that fear. He stepped forward. At first, nobody noticed. His boots crunched in the sand as he walked past the line of trucks, past the nervous soldiers. When they did notice, their eyes went wide. "Hey, where are you going?" one shouted. "Stop!"
"Get back in line!"
yelled another, but he did not stop. The commander stormed forward, his face red with rage. "Soldier, halt, that's an order!" Still he walked, all eyes turned toward him. Scientists lowered their cameras in shock. Reporters whispered into microphones. Even the crowd of villagers fell silent, watching one man walk toward the being that no one dared touch. The giantess lifted her head. Her golden eyes blinked slowly, focusing on him. Her body trembled, weak, but her gaze sharpened. She saw the food in his hands. She understood. The soldiers panicked. Rifles clicked as they aimed, fingers tight on triggers. One wrong move and bullets would fly. The man raised his voice, not to them but to her. "I am not your enemy," he said, his voice steady though his heart raced. "I will not hurt you." Step by step he crossed the empty ground between the humans and the giantess. Each step felt like walking into fire, but he did not stop. Dust swirled around him. The world held its breath. Finally he stood before her. She loomed above him like a mountain, but a mountain that was breaking apart. Her eyes glowed faintly, her breath shallow. Slowly, carefully, he lifted the pack of food. He opened the bottle of water, holding it high. For a moment, she did not move. The soldiers behind him shouted, warning her not to try anything. Helicopters circled closer, their blades chopping the air. But the giantess ignored them all. Her eyes stayed fixed on the man before her. Then with a trembling hand, she reached out. The ground shook as her massive fingers curled around the bottle. She lifted it gently, like holding glass that could shatter. Tilting her head back, she drank. Water ran down her lips, shining in the sun. A soft sound escaped her throat, a sound not of rage but of relief. She looked down again, her golden eyes softer now. Slowly, she took the bread. She ate piece by piece as carefully as a child. There was no violence, no danger. Only gratitude. The camp was silent. Every soldier, every scientist, every camera, every villager, they all watched the impossible. The alien giantess had been fed and the world had not ended. The man stood there, his heart pounding. He had expected death, but instead he saw life. He saw a being who was more than fear, more than rumor. The commander's voice finally broke the silence. "Arrest him!" he roared. But before the soldiers could move, the giantess shifted. She lowered her hand, her palm flat on the ground, close to the man. It was not a threat. It was protection. Her golden eyes flashed, warning anyone who dared approach. The man did not run. He did not hide. He stood in her shadow, calm at last. In that moment, the balance changed. Fear had ruled until now, but courage had taken its first step forward, and the world would never be the same again. The desert camp was frozen in shock. Not a single soldier dared to breathe. Helicopters hovered above, cameras zoomed in, and the crowd of villagers pressed closer against the fences. Everyone's eyes were on one impossible scene. The alien giantess holding food in her hands, eating slowly, while a single human stood calmly before her. The man's defiance was still echoing in the air. He had stepped out of the circle of fear and now he stood under her shadow, unbroken. The commander's order to arrest him still hung above the camp, but no soldier moved forward. How could they? The giantess's hand was on the ground, open but firm, like a shield between the man and the army. It was the first time she had moved, not in weakness, but in choice. The soldiers tightened their grips on their rifles. If she made one wrong move, if she even breathed too hard, bullets would rain down. Yet she did not act with violence. Her glowing eyes scanned the camp, sharp and aware. She understood. The man was her only friend here. The others were threats, and she would not let them take him. The man himself stood still, his heart racing. His legs wanted to tremble, but he refused to show fear. He looked up at her, and she looked down at him. Something unspoken passed between them again, something deeper than words. He raised his hand slowly, showing his empty palm, a gesture of peace. "I won't hurt you," he whispered, though she was too far to hear his voice clearly. But she seemed to understand anyway. Her eyes softened, and her hand, massive, scarred yet careful, shifted closer. The ground shook as her fingertip, larger than his head, touched the sand near his boots. The crowd gasped, expecting him to be crushed. But the touch was gentle, like a knock, like a question. The man did the unthinkable. He stepped forward and placed his hand on her fingertip. His tiny human hand against her colossal skin. It was the first contact. The world exploded with noise. Villagers shouted, reporters screamed into microphones, soldiers shouted orders. Cameras flashed from every direction. To the outside world, it looked like madness. One man touching the very being everyone else feared. But in that moment, the madness felt more human than all the fear in the camp. Her skin was warm, alive. Her eyes glowed brighter as she felt his touch. She tilted her head as if studying him closely. There was no hatred in her gaze, no hunger for destruction. Only curiosity, and something even rarer, trust. The commander could not bear it. His voice thundered across the desert. "This is treason. Step away now, soldier, or we will fire on both of you." The man did not step away. His hand stayed firm. His eyes stayed locked with hers. The giantess reacted. She moved her hand slightly, curling it like a wall around him. Not to crush, not to capture, but to shield. The soldiers panicked, aiming their rifles higher. Helicopters tilted forward, ready to unleash fire. The scientists shouted in chaos. "Don't shoot!" This is history. This is communication. The man raised his voice louder this time to everyone around. "Can't you see? She doesn't want to hurt us. She wants to live." His words struck like lightning. Some soldiers wavered. The villagers began to murmur. Even a few scientists lowered their equipment, their eyes wide with wonder. For the first time, doubt cracked the wall of fear, but the commander was iron. His finger hovered near the signal to fire. "One more step and I end this. We cannot risk it. She is too dangerous." The giantess's golden eyes flicked to him. For a moment, her body tensed as if ready to fight. But then she looked back at the man. And she stayed calm. She opened her mouth slightly. A sound came out. Not a word, not a scream, but a low melodic hum. It was soft, deep, almost like singing. The air seemed to vibrate with it, filling the desert with an ancient voice. The villagers fell silent, their fear melting into awe. Even the helicopters hesitated. The man's eyes widened. She was speaking. Not in human language, but in sound and music. A sound that carried emotion, sadness, hunger, hope. He nodded slowly as if answering. "I hear you," he whispered. The hum faded. She lowered her head, her gaze locked with his. Then, carefully, she drew a shape in the sand with her fingertip. A circle, then another smaller circle inside it. She pointed to herself, then to the sky. The scientists gasped. "She's trying to communicate." The man understood. She was telling them she came from above, from the stars. Not here to conquer, not here to destroy. She was a traveler, lost and stranded. The camp shook with noise again. Some shouted to kill her before it was too late. Others cried to listen, to study, to wait. The world was splitting into two sides, the side of fear and the side of hope. And at the center stood one man, his hand still resting on the fingertip of a giantess who dared to trust him. The silence broke when the commander raised his hand high. His voice was sharp as steel. "Enough! Take him away! If she resists, open fire!" The soldiers began to move, slowly, nervously. But the giantess lowered her other hand, pressing it into the ground with force. The earth shook violently, dust rising into the air. It was not an attack, it was a warning. The message was clear. He is mine to protect. And for the first time in history, an alien had chosen a human. The desert no longer felt the same after that moment. One human hand had touched the fingertip of a giantess, and the world had seen it. Fear had cracked, if only a little, and something new had begun. But not everyone welcomed it. The commander shouted for control, his voice raw with rage. The soldiers hesitated, unsure whether to follow him or the sight before their eyes. The Giantess sat calm, her golden eyes fixed only on the man she trusted. Her protection of him was no accident. She had chosen him. That night the camp was restless. Some soldiers muttered that the man was a traitor. Others whispered that maybe he had saved them all. The villagers outside the fence told stories already. Some called him foolish. Others called him brave. The scientists argued endlessly. Was she dangerous or was she a miracle? But the man did not care about their voices. His thoughts were full only of her. He remembered the warmth of her skin, the hum of her voice, the strange circle she had drawn in the sand. He knew now that she was not a beast. She was someone lost, someone reaching out, someone in need. The next day he acted again. While others kept their distance, he returned with food and water. He moved carefully, under the eyes of rifles and cameras, but he did not stop. The giantess greeted him with a slow nod, as if expecting him. Her hand lowered gently, and once again she accepted what he brought. This time, it was different. She did not only eat. She tried to communicate. With one long finger, she drew more shapes in the sand. Stars, circles, lines connecting them. The man watched closely, trying to follow. She pointed to the sky again, then to herself. Her golden eyes burned with meaning. The scientists gasped from afar. "It's a star map," one shouted. "She's showing us where she came from." The man knelt in the sand, using a stick to copy her drawings. He pointed to Earth, then to her. She watched him with surprise, then made a soft sound, something like approval. For the first time, her face showed more than suffering. It showed relief. Day after day, he returned. Sometimes he brought food, sometimes water, sometimes only his presence. Each time she trusted him more. Each time her voice, those low hums and soft tones, grew clearer, almost like a song. He could not understand the words, but he could feel the emotions inside them: gratitude, loneliness, hope. And slowly, he began to respond. He would hum back softly, awkwardly. She would tilt her head, listening, as if amazed that a human would try. Then she would answer, her sound stronger, echoing across the desert night. It was not language, not yet, but it was connection. The bond between them was noticed. Too much noticed. The commander's patience snapped. In a secret meeting, he shouted, "He is compromising our safety. If she trusts him, she may be using him. We cannot allow this." Another officer replied, "But look at the results. She has not attacked. She grows calmer every day. If he is the key, maybe we need him." The room divided. Some wanted the man punished. Some wanted him protected. But the commander's word was law, and his eyes burned with hatred. Meanwhile, outside the politics, the bond deepened. The man brought her a piece of paper and a marker. He drew symbols, simple human letters, simple shapes. She watched, curious. Slowly, with her giant finger, she copied them in the sand. Her attempts were clumsy, but she tried. When she succeeded, in repeating a simple symbol, he laughed softly, and for the first time she smiled. It was a small smile, but it shook him more than any order ever could. She was learning. And so was he. The villagers, too, began to change. Some brought baskets of fruit, leaving them near the fence. They did not dare go closer, but they no longer called her only a monster. Children whispered, "She can be our friend." Mothers said, "She looks so lonely." Fear had not vanished, but seeds of hope had been planted. But the military pressure grew heavier. Rumors spread that higher authorities wanted the giantess gone. Some spoke of moving her to a hidden base. Others whispered about weapons strong enough to kill her. The man heard these whispers, and dread filled his heart. One night, as he sat near the crater's edge, the giantess leaned closer than ever before. Her golden eyes glowed faint in the moonlight. She hummed softly, the sound trembling with sorrow. Then she drew one more shape in the sand, A single line, cutting through the circle that meant herself. The man froze. He understood. She feared death. She feared they would end her. Without thinking, he stepped closer and touched her hand again. "I won't let them," he whispered. She could not know the words, but she felt the promise. Her eyes softened, and her hum shifted, no longer sorrowful, but steady. That night, under the stars, man and giantess shared silence that spoke louder than any language. But silence would not protect them forever. Others had seen their bond, and to some, it was not hope, it was danger. The bond had been made. Now the test would come. The bond between the soldier and the giantess was no longer a secret. Everyone in the camp had seen it. Cameras had captured it. Across the world, people argued about it. Some called him a hero, others a traitor. Some called her a miracle, others a monster. The giantess had grown stronger with each passing day, not because of violence, but because of kindness. Her eyes glowed brighter now. Her body no longer trembled as before, and her voice, those strange hums and tones, carried deeper emotion each time she spoke to him. But strength brought fear. In the commander's tent, the officers gathered again. The air was heavy, thicker than smoke. "She is recovering too fast," one officer said. "Because of him," another added. "He feeds her. He teaches her. She will not stay calm forever. Sooner or later she will show her true nature." The commander slammed his fist on the table. "Enough. This ends now. Tomorrow we move her. If she resists, we put her down." Silence followed. No one dared to challenge him openly. Yet some exchanged glances. Doubt had begun to grow, but fear kept their mouths closed. The soldier overheard enough to know what was coming. His chest tightened as he walked back to the crater that night. The giantess waited for him, her golden eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. She tilted her head, sensing his unease. He sat on the sand near her hand. "They're planning something," he whispered, though she could not understand his words. Still, she felt his worry. She leaned closer, her hum low and soft, as if to comfort him instead. For the first time he realized something. He had stepped forward to save her, but now she was saving him too, saving him from despair, from the coldness of his own people. The next morning, the test began. Trucks rolled in. Soldiers surrounded the crater in tighter formation. Heavy weapons gleamed in the sun. Helicopters flew lower, their blades slicing the air with menace. The commander stood tall, his voice sharp as steel. "Today we move her. If she resists, she dies." The soldier felt his stomach twist. He stepped forward. "Sir, this is wrong. She hasn't harmed anyone." The commander's eyes burned with fury. "Silence. You've already betrayed your uniform. You stand with her, not with us." The soldiers around shifted uncomfortably. Some agreed with the commander. Others lowered their eyes, ashamed. The world was watching through the cameras, but the decision would be made here, in the dust of the desert. The giantess rose slowly to her knees. The ground shook under her weight. Her golden eyes scanned the ring of soldiers, then rested on the man who had fed her. She saw his fear, his anger, his helplessness. And then she moved. Not in rage, not in violence, but in defense. She lowered her hand again, placing it behind him, shielding him from the guns. Her hum rose, deeper this time, vibrating through the air like a warning bell. The soldiers stiffened, fingers tightened on triggers. "Fire if she takes one more step," the commander roared. The soldier shouted back, louder than he ever thought possible. "No, look at her. She's protecting me, not attacking us." His words shook the crowd. The villagers outside the fence began to shout too. "Don't shoot, don't kill her!" Their voices rose, echoing across the desert. Mothers held their children close, calling for mercy. Reporters cried into cameras, "History is happening now." But the commander's hand was still raised, ready to give the final signal. His face was twisted with fear disguised as control. The soldier turned, his voice breaking. "If you fire at her, you'll have to fire at me too." Gasps filled the air. Even the soldiers hesitated, their rifles trembling. The giantess's eyes widened. She hummed again, softer now, almost like sorrow. Her hand curled slightly around him, protecting him more firmly. The moment stretched like glass about to shatter. One choice, one command, and everything would break. And then something unexpected happened. One soldier lowered his rifle. Another followed. Then another. The commander spun in fury. "What are you doing?" "That's an order." But doubt had become stronger than fear. Some soldiers refused to raise their guns again. The villagers shouted louder, their voices rolling like waves. Even the scientists stepped forward begging, "We must not kill her. She is trying to connect with us." For the first time, the commander's control slipped. His raised hand shook. The soldier looked up at the giantess. "Hold on," he whispered. "Don't give up." Her golden eyes softened. She hummed again, but this time it was not warning, not sorrow. It was something deeper, something like hope. The sound washed over the desert, calming even the most frightened hearts. The commander's face was red with rage, but he could not give the order. Too many eyes were against him now. Too many voices shouted for mercy. He lowered his hand slowly, teeth clenched, fury burning in silence. The test of humanity had come. And for once, fear had not won. The soldier stood taller, his heart steady. The giantess remained still, her trust unbroken. But deep inside, both of them knew this was only the beginning. The desert was heavy with silence. Dust hung in the air, rifles glimmered in the sun, and every heart waited for the next move. The commander's order to fire had been stopped, but his rage had not. His eyes burned with hatred, his voice sharp with pride. "This is not mercy," he spat. "This is weakness. We cannot trust her. If we do not kill her now, humanity will regret it," but the people did not agree. Soldiers shifted nervously. Villagers shouted from behind the fence. Scientists begged for time. And in the middle of it all, the soldier stood tall, his body shielded by the giantess's hand. He looked up at her. Her golden eyes glowed softly, not with anger, but with something deeper, faith. She had chosen him, and she would protect him even if it meant her life. The commander barked again, trying to seize control. "You are betraying your world for her." "She is not one of us." The soldier's voice rose, steady and clear. "What makes us human is not fear. It is compassion. If we destroy her now, we destroy the best part of ourselves." His words cut through the air like a blade. The villagers cheered. Some soldiers lowered their guns again. Even the helicopters seemed to hesitate, their engines humming uncertainly. But the commander refused to yield. His hand reached for the signal device, the one command that could unleash fire from every weapon at once. The soldier's heart pounded. He stepped forward, standing fully in front of the giantess, his arms spread wide. His voice thundered, "If you want to kill her, you will have to kill me too." Gasps tore through the camp. No one moved. No one spoke. The commander's hand shook with fury, but he could not press the button. The sight of one man willing to die for an alien broke the certainty of fear. And then it happened. The giantess rose to her full height for the first time since her crash. The ground quaked beneath her. Dust spiraled into the air, and her shadow fell across the entire camp. Soldiers stumbled back, some dropping their weapons. The villagers screamed, not in terror but in awe. Her hum began low and deep, then grew louder, stronger, until it filled the desert like thunder. It was not rage. It was a call. A sound of truth that carried into every heart. "I am not your enemy." She spread her arms wide, not in attack but in openness. For the first time, she showed her full strength, not to destroy but to declare peace. The soldier turned, his voice rising with hers. "She is not here to harm us. She is here because she trusts us, because one of us dared to care." The crowd roared. Villagers pressed against the fence, shouting for her safety. Some soldiers threw down their rifles entirely. The scientists wept openly, scribbling in their books, knowing they were watching history. But the commander was not moved. His face twisted with rage. "Enough! If you will not obey, then I will do it myself." He raised the signal device high. His thumb hovered over the button. Before he could press it, the earth shook with a force far greater than her rising. The sky itself seemed to tremble. Everyone turned their eyes upward. High above, in the endless blue, lights appeared. Not stars, not planes, ships, enormous, silent, shining like silver arrows. The giantess's golden eyes brightened. She lifted her hand toward the sky, her hum shifting into a softer song, filled with longing. The soldiers panicked. "It's an invasion," one cried. "Her kind has come for us." Fear surged through the camp. Guns rose again. Voices screamed. But the soldier shook his head firmly. No, they've been watching, waiting, and now they've seen. The ships hovered silently, their presence heavy but calm. No weapons fired. No war began. They only observed. The Giantess looked down at the man who had fed her, the man who had touched her hand, the man who had defended her with his life. Her eyes glowed brighter, and with a final deep hum she declared the truth. One act of kindness can change everything. The commander's signal device slipped from his hand, falling uselessly into the dust. His authority was gone. His fear was exposed. Around him, soldiers no longer listened. The villagers shouted with joy. The scientists cried out that peace had been made. The soldier stood beneath the Giantess, his chest rising with steady breath. He had chosen compassion over fear, and now the world would remember it. The ships in the sky slowly drifted back into the clouds, leaving only silence behind. They had seen enough. Humanity had passed the test. The Giantess lowered her hand once more, placing it gently near the soldier's feet. Her eyes, soft and golden, locked with his. No words were spoken, but the message was clear. You gave me life. I give you my trust. The desert, once filled with fear, now echoed with hope. The first bond between human and alien had been forged. Not by power, not by war, but by one step forward, one open hand, one simple act of feeding the hungry. And from that day, the world would never be the same again.